Greetings, Mind Crafters, and welcome to another Minecraft episode on this beautiful day. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am just super pumped once again to jump back into Essentialism. I'll tell you, this has been really good summer reading. I actually started it before this summer. My mastermind friends got me going on Greg McGowan's book Essentialism, which then led me to Effortless, his next book. And I really want to stay with this Essentialism idea right now and really talk about when essentialism makes its way from your mind into a lifestyle, or how Greg McGowan puts it like enters your heart and becomes part of who you are. And I'll tell you, I this is, of course, I think later, a lot of us in our midlife and later years really get reflective on things, and I just think about this, and this is just, oh my god, essentialism is just such the key to living, a fantastic life. It involves mindfulness, it involves gratitude, and it involves using priority as a singular word. And, Greg talks about how easy it is to get caught up in that, how he refers to it as the paradox of success. And I know in his, well, is the book after this book, he talks about all that efforting because it's so, Puritanism taught us that, the more we do, the harder. And I'm not a big fan of lazy. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, like overkill, like just, putting in, a gazillion hours. And he's got, he uses a example in the beginning of Effortless with a man. I think his name was Pat. I'm not looking at that right now. Patrick McGinnis. He was working 80 hours a week and ended up having, health issues, and didn't, obviously wasn't spending time, with the people he loved and all that stuff. And then the company ended up going bankrupt. It was all for nothing. We think about that, and my good friend Oprah often says, listen to the whispers before they turn into bricks. It's that classic old heart attack example when people are going full tilt, efforting to the point of, not mattering, and, staying late, checking emails. And, the Puritan thing talked about, like, if we don't stay late at work, must be your job isn't that important. And it goes on and on and on. And that's more, well, actually it's a combination of both books, I guess, but that paradox of success, that we have to put in the 80 hours a week, to be successful, kind of thing, when, really, obviously, that just, I don't know. I don't think anybody wants it on their gravestone, or I can't even. I don't want to. Personally, I don't want to be buried. I'm claustrophobic. But let's just say your memorial. Never missed a day. Never missed a day of work. And also, I'm thinking of Sean Akers. Lots of people pulled into this same idea. Sean Akers, in his book The Happiness Advantage, he's talked about how we have it, ass backwards here in the States, as far as we tend to think that, only after I'm successful can I be happy. And it's the exact opposite. Only once I'm truly happy can I be successful. And how can anyone be happy working 80 hours a week? And I love what I do. I love that I have the flexibility and creativity where I am with my creativity to, when I'm feeling it, I can jump in, and then I can take 2 hours back later on. I love that. I wouldn't change a thing, actually. And then, Greg talks about, as far as the success thing goes, he says we have clarity of purpose, which leads us to success. But with our success, we get new options and opportunities. This sounds like a good thing, but remember, these options unintentionally distract us, tempt us, lure us away. Our clarity becomes clouded, and soon we find ourselves spread too thin. I have to tell you, just even reading this right now, I've gotten better at this at a fabulous 58 and a half. Now I'm a fabulous 58 and a half. Um, gosh, over and over in my younger life, I got caught up in that. I'm just being 100% honest, getting spread too thin. And it's certainly easy to do. It's just easy to do. I think because especially you know, when you're offered things that are just no brainer, easy to say no thanks to. Like, what, for me, details, I'm not a fan. So somebody said, gee, Kim, I'll give you an absolute fortune to sit for 8 hours and do data entry? I would say no, without even, they wouldn't even get the sentence out because I would just be such a gigantic waste of my life minutes. I couldn't even, but when you get an opportunity of opportunities that are good, do you want to come speak here, speak there? So maybe you offered 4 speaking engagements in the matter of, 2 weeks. Well, then you got to make choices because if all 4 of them are like these super sexy opportunities, you'll be dead in the ground because you got to, well, if you're going to pull it off and do it well anyway, plan and, know exactly what you're going to say. You're going to know your audience because it's so important to know your audience when you speak. And you got to have a lot of conversations before and all things like that. So if you're going to authentically crush it, that's too many in 2 weeks. And so that's what Greg's talking about. It gets tougher when success continues to present itself like that. Opportunities for success, because in order to be great at what we're already good at, we've got to trim the fat on the other opportunities, even if they are also good. And for me, that's where the challenge lies anyway. So again, Greg says, but with our success, we get new options and opportunities, right? He said, this sounds like a good thing, but again, they lure us away and tempt us to bite the hook and spread ourselves too thin. And then he says, our clarity becomes clouded, and soon we find ourselves spread too thin. Now, instead of being utilized at our highest level of contribution, we make only a millimeter of progress in a million directions. Oh my God, I've done that so many times, I couldn't possibly count them all. Ultimately, our success becomes a catalyst for our failure. That's deep. I really love that. I think that's kind of what we're saying because eventually, definitely as a young mother, I just remember I was because I was doing fun things with my kids all the time, fun things and just baseball leagues and this and that, taking on just everything, and eventually, I mean something's gonna eventually give, and it's usually you get the flu or something, right? And I mean, I loved, emphasis on loved being home with my kids. And I was not good at saying no to the lesser important things as I love baseball. That was a good choice. Do I need to be in the PTO? Probs not. I just don't. And there are things you just have to pick and choose. I'd rather be with my kids playing a sport than doing that crap. But that's just me. But it depends how you choose to make a difference. What's crap to me might be important to somebody else because you're making a difference in a different way. So that's kind of what we're talking about. I'd rather be hands on in the field. All right. So um, ultimately, Greg says, ultimately, our success becomes a catalyst for our failure. The only way out of this cycle is the way of the essentialist. And this, I'm a grasshopper as an essentialist, but I'm loving it, I'll tell you that. And Greg says, but the way of the essentialist isn't just about success, it's about living a life of meaning and purpose. When we look back on our careers and our lives, would we rather see a long laundry list of accomplishments that don't really matter or just a few major accomplishments that have real meaning and significance? I got to stay there for a second because especially those of us who are oldest children, and if you're oldest children in general, tend to be very high achieving. It's part of the birth order thing. Obviously, not everybody. We're generalizing, but a lot of the time, the oldest child is a real go getter, right? And then if that oldest child happens to be the adult child of an alcoholic or other addiction in the family, then there is often, not always, the golden child role or the responsible child role that just feels the need to take it all on. And I just thought I would mention it here because achievements or accomplishments can be a real dope fix when there's emotionality behind it because it feels good to get those accolades. It feels good to get those kudos, even for somebody who's neurotypical, or even for somebody who's not from an addictive family, even someone who's not born as an oldest child. It feels good, right? To get trophies and accolades and go stand up on a stage and have people say nice things about you, not just as a child or young adult, but also as a seasoned adult. Promotions, right? So these can be addicting. I mean, it is a thing. That's what overachievers, right? Overachievers, them. They're in a sense, addicted to accomplishing. And so this is an important thing to mention because did we just want to rack up a bunch of trophies in a case, which basically has our self-esteem on the outside rather than the inside? Or do we want to look at, what of these big accomplishments were incredibly, incredibly meaningful? They may not have come with a trophy. Like I was and still am, I have young adults now, on a mission to be the best mother I could possibly be. And there isn't any, there isn't a metaphor, there isn't like a hands-on, gold trophy to put in a case for that. But I'll tell you, the intrinsic trophy, which is worth everything to me, just knowing, that I gave it my absolute best. And certainly I'm not perfect, no one is, but I did the good enough mother thing, I think. And the kids are all close and they're all safe and happy and doing really well. And that's one of my biggest, if not my biggest accomplishment, including obviously my wonderful husband. That goes without saying. But having having a really cohesive family is, I think, my most meaningful accomplishment. And again, there's no nothing to put around your neck, or a trophy case for that. So, in your own perspective, that's what we're talking about, is the things that your most meaningful accomplishments, rather than, okay, we're talking about quality, not quantity. There you go. And then Greg says, if you allow yourself to fully embrace essentialism, to really live it in everything you do, whether at home or work, it can become a part of the way you see and understand the world. You can change your thinking so deeply that the practices of essentialism we have discussed, and the many others you'll develop, become natural and instinctive. See, this is where I'm at right now. And it's amazing, because part of me, and I'm going to be so honest, I don't know how to do anything else. Part of me, we kind of look back like, wow, like, have you ever just thought that? Like, if I only sort of got this idea 30 years ago, wow, but that isn't how it works. In your 20s, you're in a whole different place than you are in your 30s, and you're a whole different place in your 40s, and you're a whole different place in your 50s and 60s and older. And, I was definitely, especially with my fast mind, also known as ADHD, but, I don't like that. Um, I was all over the place a lot, and it wasn't all bad, because I'm super fun and spontaneous because of my impulsivity too. I'm just being honest. I'm like, wow, like, this is so deep and so good. If only I could have done Greg McCowan's WIN acronym thing. What's important now? All throughout my whole day, starting from back in college, and I can only imagine that. Although my choices may have been different, because I was a super, super, super social bug, and my answer probably would have been this party, then that party, then after hours. That would have been my what's important now, you know, probably, domino effect. But in my 50s, I'm loving it, because I feel like I'm really ready to hear this. And it's amazing how the universe, I've said this before when I do these podcasts, I often don't really plan them a whole lot, if at all. I kind of get inspired by reading or seeing something on YouTube, or just being out in the world. A lot of times I'm just walking in the woods, and these just really relatable ideas come to me that I know people are going to connect with, because they're full of, humanness. And it just kind of rolls out of me. And for right now, I need this. And so this is easy for me to discuss, because I'm on the essentialist track right now. And so Greg says, so as these ideas become emotionally true, they take on the power to change you. And I'm telling you, as I sit here on my back deck with Giovanni right next to me taking a snooze, this is definitely um, where I'm at right now. It's essentialism is becoming uh, more, I'm going to say more of a lifestyle, because I've definitely always prioritized my family and things like that. But I'm the first one to admit that, gosh, I've had moments of just spreading myself like ridiculously thin. And now, I'm ready for this. I'm ready for this message. I'm ready to, like it. I'm really ready to embrace it. Trim the fat. Less is more. I'm ready. I'll tell you, Greg McCowan. Again, this is the Essentialism book I'm talking about now. The first one, and the second one is the Effortless book, which is also amazing. Um, I like how he brings in these nuggets of fact too. I wish he's actually someone I've added to my would like to do lunch with in the future list, and I've got a bunch, and Oprah's definitely at the top. Then I've got some people I'd like to have lunch with eventually, who have since passed on. Wayne Dyer being one of my favorites ever, Robin Williams. But in the here and now, Greg McGowan is definitely. I'd love to hang out in a bistro with him for like hours. So he talks about. He said the Greeks had a word, metanoia, that refers to a transformation of the heart. We tend to think of transformations as happening only in the mind, but as the proverb goes, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. He says, italics added. Once the essence of essentialism enters our hearts, the way of the essentialist becomes who we are. We become a different, better version of ourselves. And I'll tell you that this is already happening to me because ever since I started reading his book, this particular book, months ago, when it was what's important now, and when Greg talked about priority being a singular word back in the 1400s. I've been doing this, and again, I'm a grasshopper. I'm my white belt with maybe a blue stripe, maybe two blue stripes at the very most. And I've been doing this a lot. What is essential now? And with my fast mind, it's even more of a challenge, right? The ADHD thing. And it's working. I just have to repeat it a lot. What's important now is because especially with technology, with the computers, I know it's very easy when I'm working on writing. I'm working on writing a book right now, and if I check email, it goes right down a rabbit hole. And I just fire back some emails that aren't even that important. They could all wait, or maybe if there's 10 of them, 8 of them could wait. Some of them, and they're nice people, they're good people. It's not all that, but some of them just don't need immediate response. It's something about the fall or the spring, or what do you think about this idea, or can I introduce you to this one? It can all, even if you just set a time. So I've been doing this. What is essential right now? It is not essential. I just checked my email an hour ago or 2 hours ago. It's not essential. While I'm working on workshops currently for Champlain. I've got a lot of creativity stuff going on, and when I do that, it's best to stay in it and not look at emails for at least a couple of hours if I can help it, because my creative gears are wildly spinning to come up with these workshops for students. And so the what is essential now thing is really working for me. And I would say, especially when I'm working on the computer, because and it's been helping a lot. Like, I just don't need to do that right this second. It doesn't mean don't do it ever. Some things I can put off to maybe 3 when I'm kind of, my creativity time is more the whole early part of the morning and the afternoon. So by the time it's 4, that's a good time to answer emails, and then just do that, and then have a beginning to it and an end to it. And that's been working super well for me, professionally, which well-being wise, every kind of wise. And to be quite honest, it's more efficient, because when we have splintered attention, when we leave the writing the book or writing the workshops or whatever to check email, we have to kind of ease out of whatever we're doing, and then we have to re-ease back in. So it's not efficient either. It's way more efficient to put things in blocks and focus on what is important now and stay with that one thing, then switch to whatever's important next. So I'm thinking this is a really natural way to wind up, because I'm kind of in the zone with this, and there's more to say about it, because it's there's more to say about when we start to make this transition, and being an essentialist in our nutty, media saturated, fast paced society also isn't easy. And I think it's like anything else. When we start to get good at something in life, right, then it seems like when we get better at whatever it is, then more challenges are presented to us. It's just how it works. So once we start to get good at essentialism, I'm going to guess, because I'm just kind of getting into it myself, that we're going to be presented with challenges, and which means probably more good opportunities to make choices between and say no to, and things like that. And so I'm actually going to do another. I'm going to continue the conversation on about essentialism not always being easy, and then what it can look like in sort of reality, like everyday conversation, everyday activities with families, with work, and some of the examples of what it's like to be an essentialist. Because for me, I try to be relatable. I don't try, I am relatable. Because I'm just a regular person, and I got all kinds of everything going on like anybody else, and that's why I like when my favorite people as far as influencers and who I listen to are other self-identifying regular people and that don't have a need to use 14 karat sexy terms. And there's a place for that sometimes, right? There's a place for that. You'll do a presentation on all things neuroscience or whatever like that. But in everyday, discussions, I know that I'm attracted to people who talk about their kids, and they talk about their very honest about their struggles and being vulnerable and just honest about life. That's who I'm attracted to listening to, because that's who I am as a person too. And so so keeping it real is the way to go. All right, so that's it. There's going to be a part 2 here. It might be called a little something different. I didn't get that far yet, but this is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the lovely Northern Vermont. Have a mindful, very essential day.